what could possibly bring together the following scenes? A flock of birds beautifully cavorting in harmonious patterns. Lava meeting waves and steam rising beautifully. In the primeval earth, a dominant dinosaur overwhelming a less powerful dinosaur. A young kid who throws a baseball through a window simply because it's the wrong thing to do. A middle-aged man sitting in a contemporary office building in a deep depression, and a meteor slamming into the primeval earth. Well, if I'm the least bit right in my reading of Terrence Malick's extraordinary new film, The Tree of Life, what brings them together is they're all oddly part of the providential plan and purpose of God. Now, I know how pretentious that can sound, but this is a film and a filmmaker with very grand ambitions indeed. The movie opens with a quote from the book of Job, and so anyone who's paying serious attention to this movie knows he's about some religious business. Here's the quote. It's from the 38th chapter of the book of Job. "Where were you when I founded the earth, while the morning stars sang in chorus and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" Now, what is that? Well, those are some of the opening lines of the great speech that God gives to Job, who, as you know, is the righteous man who endures every type of suffering, and finally calls God into the dock. Justify yourself, explain yourself to me why you allowed so much evil. Malick's film opens with a couple played by Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain, a middle-aged couple who've just been informed that their 19-year-old son has died. And they go into a kind of Job-like confusion and depression. How could God have allowed this? Now see, what's really interesting about the book of Job is God doesn't directly answer Job's question. What he does is he brings him, as this opening quote indicates, on this elaborate tour of the cosmos in all of its strangeness, complexity, mystery. See, where were you, Job? You don't understand what I'm about. God's speech to Job ends with this beautiful evocation of Leviathan, probably a whale, and Behemoth. Maybe it's a hippo or it's a crocodile, we don't know. But God describes these stunningly complex and powerful and beautiful creatures that he's made. Well, here's what's really fascinating. Malick begins with this couple and their dilemma, their problem. And then it goes into about a 20-minute, visually stunning sequence that includes a lot of the scenes I mentioned at the outset and lots of other things. Going back to the beginning of the earth, going into the splitting of cells, a jellyfish rising like a ballet dancer to the surface of the ocean. Scene after scene of cosmic forces, events, harmonies. And you're kind of wondering, like, what happened to this movie? We were watching this kind of domestic scene, and suddenly we're brought for an extended period. It's not a little meditation, an extended period, as we look around the glories and puzzling beauties, you might say, of the cosmos. What he's doing, I think, is mimicking God's speech to Job. He's trying to respond to this great question that the parents have. How could this have happened? But he's insisting, like the book of Job, the answer to that question can never come in some sort of direct way. It comes only by taking in the broadest possible perspective, namely to see things from God's perspective, what God is up to in the whole of the cosmos. Now, what's he up to? Malick suggests that the universe is composed of two great forces. He calls them nature and grace. What's nature? Well, nature is something hard-edged, violent, competitive. It's the tough side of the world. That scene I alluded to of the more powerful dinosaur dominating the other one, that's an expression of nature. What's grace? Grace is love, forgiveness, compassion, gentleness. The scene of the lava meeting the waves and then the two of them giving rise to steam, I think is this great visual illustration of the clashing of these two great forces that run cosmically and they also run right through human affairs. He begins with the couple. He then goes out to the widest possible horizon, looking at the cosmos in all of its splendor and these two great forces, and then he brings the focus right back again to the couple and their kids. They're flashing back now further into time. So we have Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain and their kids now as little people. And what becomes very clear is that the father, played by Brad Pitt, is the embodiment of nature. He's strong, he's clear, he's hard-edged, he's demanding, he's competitive. He loves his kids, that's pretty clear. He's not a tyrant, he's just not a bad guy, but he's the embodiment of this tougher, harder-edged side of things. The mother is the avatar of grace. She is gentle and she's kind, she's forgiving, she's playful. It's like the two forces that move through the cosmos are expressed in this couple. The kids now coming of age under these two influences. The oldest child, who's played very beautifully by a young actor called Hunter McCracken, is under the influence of the two parents, but more under the influence of his father. We meet him in the film, and I'm purposely mimicking the way the film cuts back between past, present, future, cosmos, the particular, all that. It's part of the dreamlike quality of it. This kid now, as a middle-aged man, is played by Sean Penn. And we find him as an architect sitting in these buildings he's made. And the buildings are starkly modernistic. Glass towers, hard-edged. You see that he's taken in both his mom and his dad, but probably more of his dad. And his depression's coming, I think, because he has too much of nature, not enough of grace. Okay, we'd have to do an hours-long commentary to go into all the details of this movie. What I find fascinating is both nature and grace, as Malick reads it, are under the aegis and influence of God. Both are ingredient in God's creation. Think of the lava meeting the waves, right? They're not good and evil. They're both elements within the universe that come together to produce the roughly beautiful order that we see in God's creation. I was reminded here of St. Thomas Aquinas, who says that God is a wise provider. He's the provident governor of the universe who allows what we'd call evil, allows negativity into his creation for the purpose of producing a greater good. Why is God doing something? From our perspective, it just looks like dumb suffering or simply evil. Aquinas says that God allows, and here he's like the author of the book of Job, God allows in his grand cosmic purpose a certain play of nature and grace, a certain play of the hard-edged and the forgiving, if you want. I think Terrence Malick is making a similar point in this very reflective movie. Just a last point about the title, the Tree of Life. That comes from the book of Genesis, of course, when in the Garden of Eden, there's the Tree of Life, and there's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. When Adam and Eve grasp at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they are prevented from accessing the Tree of Life, right? Now, how do you read that symbolically? Adam and Eve represent the desire to grasp at what God alone fully knows. God's command over good and evil. When I seek to know it, in Malick's terms, how do nature and grace relate to each other? How is everything making sense? When I try to grab that and have it, I assume a godlike position, and I'm thereby denied access to real life. The point is a kind of surrender to God. Where were you when I made the foundations of the world? I mean, you won't understand what I'm about, but can you accept that I am the Lord? Can you accept that I am the wise provider? Can you accept the fact, though you can't see it in detail, that I'm about something beautiful in the universe? That gives us access to the Tree of Life. I do think it's this very grandly biblical vision that Terrence Malick is trying to communicate in the Tree of Life.